watching Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Mayor Ian Boddy of the city of Owen Sound. If you can't recognize the scenery behind him, it's the farmer's market. And that's blue sky. My goodness. Ian, you brought the blue sky to Politically Speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a busy day down there, and it's nice being in the atrium here at City Hall.
Yes. Is that SOS that's down there today?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's worth noting because there's quite a crowd down there, and they're making use of the supportive outreach services, which is a multidisciplinary program for people in our community who have no access to a variety of services. So it's good to see that happening.
Yeah, it's a great program. The county paramedics are there, and a whole bunch of services all together in one place downtown, which is great.
Indeed. Anyway, now that you've brought the blue sky, there is always something to bring clouds, and I guess let's start it off with the budget, which is probably on the tip of everyone's tongue. At least it has been in the last couple of months. The budget public meeting was at the last meeting of council, and it was, I'll be honest with you. I was deeply impressed with the Director of Corporate Services, Kate Allen, and her presentation. I've seen those presentations time and time again, and that had to be one of the best explanations of municipal taxation I've ever seen.
Well, that I would agree with that. And if you go to owensound.ca and then hit government up on the top right-hand corner, and a panel will come up on the left side, look for council and committees. And when you click on that, a calendar will come up. And then if you click on January, I'm going to say 29th, I think was the date, but approximately then, and click on that. And then you get the HTML and click on that. And when you go down the agenda, you can go right to the presentation, and the video is there to watch that portion of the meeting. It was quite good. She answered a lot of questions that seemed to be out there in the community. And I come back to my comments that I was making before Christmas. My mind hasn't changed. This is, we're in probably the best financial position of the city of Owen Sound we've been in years. When we look at the BMA studies, we're down into the mid-range for levy per capita, and we've always been high. It was like a 7% change. We expect another approximately 5% change coming for the next year. So we're in good shape. We're continuing to work to get it better. The thing that seems to be overlooked in the community discussion is back in the summer of 2023, so, a few months ago, council took or staff, I suppose, took the MNP consultants report. They had an overarching 6 recommendations. Council and staff worked that into 53 actionable opportunities identified in the plan to improve the administrative operations and try and become more efficient. We believe that it could be up to 10% or a $2 million savings. It will be worked out in the rest of this term. So over the next 3 years, covering off those 53 actionable opportunities that are identified. So, it's a 3-year plan. It's important we do this carefully and look at it carefully and come back one report at a time, not trying to make an off-the-cuff decision at budget time to get there.
One of the things that I think that it's worth remembering is that municipal finances, like municipal structures, are massive. and they can't always be changed immediately as quickly. It's kind of like turning an aircraft carrier around or a super tanker. It's a big ship. It's not always nimble. And sometimes it takes a little time to move in directions that you want to move in.
Well, of course, a municipality in Canada is the creation of the province. There's somewhere, I think I counted 45 different statutes plus regulations that control what a municipality does. Municipal Act's the big one. Planning Act would be a big one. Building Code, and so many others. We rely on a certain amount of funding and grant transfers from the province to help us with some of the infrastructure, et cetera. Out of all the tax dollars that are collected, only 9 cents of every dollar comes from property tax, goes to municipalities. But municipalities are carrying something like 64, something in the 60s percent of the infrastructure. So, we're pretty limited and pretty squeezed, but everybody likes the services that are provided by the city. Nobody wants to pay the taxes for them. We spend 3 or 4 weeks in the public mind discussing budgets. And we spend the next 11 months hearing from the public that we need to add services. We need to add bus services at night. We're not removing enough snow fast enough from the streets. We're not getting to the back streets fast enough. We're not removing sidewalk snow from the sidewalks. There's a constant, we want more services, but we don't want to pay for it. And that has to be balanced.
Absolutely. It's your comment about the municipalities. I was reading recently this week, I maybe even been in the Toronto Star, that that municipalities in Canada are kind of treated like juveniles, and they're not treated like adults. You can't run a debt, for example. You cannot borrow. You must produce a balanced budget, and even universities don't have to balance their budgets, although they are provincially funded from a variety of sources. This author was saying, so you're right. That, as you were saying, the acts that you're subject to, I'm thinking there's the Police Act, there's the various Fire Protection Act, there's the Fire Protection Act, there's various employment acts, there's because you are in a unionized environment, that's federal, but there are labor codes that you have to follow, and so on and so on and so on.
So you mentioned fire and police, and of course they account for something like 46% of our budget. So that's gone right off the top. Fire, both of them go through arbitration. Both of them are labor-intensive, negotiated contracts. And after the past summer I didn't hear anybody calling for a cut to the police force as they maybe did a few years ago. And with fire, we continue to work through the arbitration system, and certainly through the police, we continue to try and get in dispatch contracts to offset the cost for the city residents. And I think we do a pretty good job over at the police department with that. So it's a challenge always.
For sure. Now the budget itself. Let's talk about the timeline. It will come back to council in February.
It will come back to council in February with the final report. Of course, we had lots of comments that came in from the public. Ms. Allen certainly made it very clear in her presentation that she answered a lot of those questions that were there. She's looked at them. Council has looked at the different comments and the different ideas, and sometimes there's little ideas that are buried in the back of your mind that may come out in the service review, et cetera. But we're pretty confident that our staff have got this right. They've been working at it all year long. We're doing 5-year capital plans instead of 1 year to try and balance out those influxes. We've certainly seen municipalities around us that are all of a sudden getting whacked in capital because they didn't have or don't have perhaps long-term planning and reserves and things that we've tried to do. Over the last 10 or so years, we've tried to take a guaranteed 1% tax increase, and we haven't got to 1% every time. Sometimes we're a little bit below that, but we've tried to put it into capital. A few years ago, we got a study on just roads, and at the rate we're going repaving, it was going to take us 99 years to repave the roads in the city of Owen Sound that needed to be done now. And of course, every other street's going to deteriorate in 99 years. So we've tried to put more money into that, into reserves, into capital, into infrastructure, and bring it back up. Back before I was in council, and this doesn't reflect on me being on council, there's a change shortly after I went on, where council always used to look at the operations budget first and the capital budget second, and to try and find some savings, they always cut capital. And I've said to you, I don't know how many times in this show, and probably to many others, that you're borrowing from the bank of asphalt, and the interest rate is high. You can't keep letting your infrastructure deteriorate. At some point, you've got to do it, and you need long-term, reasonable and responsible budgeting, thinking long-term to build that capital and that infrastructure and make sure that it doesn't collapse altogether. So that's what we've been working on, and we're very proud that we got to a 2.81% levy increase in Owen Sound, and that includes 1% increase to capital infrastructure.
And when you look at the surrounding municipalities who are coming in with close to double-digit increases, it's something that is, how shall I say it? It's a good sign for the city.
Grey County's approved 6.3, Bruce County 6.16, South Bruce Peninsula is 4.99, Grey Highlands 12.5, Town of Blue Mountains 2.5, and Collingwood 1.67. But what they're doing is they're dipping into the reserves or their surplus that they had last year or this year, they're using it to bring down taxes. That can be dangerous because their costs are still going up. They're supplementing it with last year's surplus. The cost is going to go up next year. So next year, when they don't have that surplus or aren't likely to have it to put in, they're going to be looking at double 2 years of inflated prices. Meaford 5.75, Georgian Bluffs 9.19, West Grey 9.7. Hanover, I think, is in around 10%. So we're doing pretty well at 2.5%, not dipping into reserves to bring it down. I've got other provincial municipalities here too that are all 6.4. I guess one's 4.5 ranging to 10.6. So these are communities that are Cobourg, Huntsville, Strathroy, Kingsville, Collingwood, Amherstburg, Tillsonburg, Orangeville, Peterborough. Now, Peterborough is not really comparable because I think it's 85,000 people, but these are municipalities that are providing services like ours, though they might not be providing all the same services. A couple of those, their garbage pickup is done by the upper tier. Snow removal might be done by the upper tier. They might have OPP, which will, change the numbers certainly on the sunshine list, but the cost is still there. So it's really hard to compare specific municipalities. That's why I like to look at that BMA study that you're looking at an array of approximately 20 people in our category, 120 different municipalities, some bigger, some smaller, some, just a wider array that are providing a wider array of services, and see that we're dropping into the mid-range there, and we're trending in the right direction.
Sure. It's a very interesting situation because you referred to the municipalities that are drawing from reserves. I've heard that expressed as punting down the road.
Well, Dave, you've kicked around here long enough. You'll remember somewhere between 08, 14, 10, Meaford had a ratepayers association that they put a lot of pressure on council to come in with 0% budgets. And they did that for 3 years. They had a bridge that was almost washing out. They didn't have any reserves to deal with it. The province was at the edge of stepping in or involved, I'm not sure which. They got a study that said they had to increase their taxes by 10% for each of the next 5 years to rebuild those reserves that they've been dipping into. And that's the difficulty when you start cutting taxes. You got to dip into those reserves to do it. And at some point, it's coming back to bite you. So, it's more responsible to think long-term, put the money into those reserves for capital and for infrastructure. And if you think 1 year at a time, you get into trouble. And that certainly happened at Meaford. We don't want to do that here.
That's a very good point, Ian, because I do remember that situation. It was, dare I use the word, remarkable. And you do not want the province to step in, because basically the province steps in and runs the show for as long as is necessary.
Well, halfway through, the city manager or CAO resigned or was let go. I'm really not sure what happened there. The mayor resigned, and interesting. Back to my university days, the province of Manitoba stepped in about 1970 in Winnipeg and ran it for 3 or 4 years, and then put it back in its feet after, and it was quite controversial. And yeah, you don't want the province stepping in. They don't want to step in. They'd rather have local decisions made locally, but it can happen.
Sure. And I think so. It's the same thing happened in South Bruce Peninsula in the last decade.
I don't remember that one, but
I believe that they did have the province step in, or at least the province came in to offer advice, because there was a fair amount of conflict within the council. But that
council
was
itself. Okay, yeah,
that was council itself. Yeah. Hey, I bet you if you scratch the surface on municipal stories across the province, you could write a doctoral thesis.
I'm sure someone's done it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on. You alluded to the 5-year capital plan, which is something that the council has worked on actually this week. Spent half a day looking at the 5-year capital plan, and you did say that this was a sort of longer range planning. Can you say more about the 5-year capital plan?
Well, what we try and do is identify capital and infrastructure that has to be done, and try and time it out so that it isn't all coming in 1 year. The timing out for your staff without adding staff to take on more, timing out the budget and spreading it out over a period of time, so you know what projects you have to do, where they're at. You might try and do the engineering for X amount of dollars in 1 year. You might try and start putting more money into reserves, knowing that is coming. Certainly we did that with 10th Street Bridge. Coming up will be Alpha Street, which is water, wastewater. The whole rebuilding of the hill and the road. Long-term capital planning allows different buildings that may need a roof to try and plan it so you're doing it all in 1 year and maybe get a better buy. Certainly, we've seen different municipalities that pave the road 1 year and then dig it up the next to put in the pipes underneath. So long-term planning, capital planning, you start to think about those things. So you make sure you're doing the water, wastewater, underground stuff before you're doing the paving on top of it. What would be another example? Going down 3rd Avenue past the Bayshore Community Center, we did parts of it in 2 or 3 years to try and phase it out, level it out. And that was working with the county, because that's a county road. So just trying to smooth out the cost, trying to balance out the workload, and plan it out longer, over a longer period of time.
Now, one of the comments I heard, I think it was Kate Ellen who mentioned this, but I've heard this from other municipal politicians, is the biggest expense in municipal budgets right now is cost of materials, aside from HR. That's a given, but the big cost is cost of materials. In fact, one of your colleagues in Grey County said they could not believe the price of asphalt. So is this one of the things that does it keep you up at night?
Uh, a lot of things keep me up at night, for sure. Yeah, there used to be color in this beard, Dave. A municipality, I think it's 64% is how much our insurance has gone up over the last number of years. Needless to say, a municipality will get sued more times than a homeowner. Slips and falls, accidents, whatever, that the insurance has got to cover. So that's for all municipalities. We're actually pretty good here, but when we're lumped in with all municipalities across the province buying insurance, the insurance goes up because they're trying to cover all those municipalities. Energy costs, whether it be electricity that's gone up for everybody, whether it be gas with gas tax that's gone up for everybody, whether it be the petroleum that goes into the asphalt that's gone up. Certainly labor costs across the whole province after COVID have gone up. So these are all things that are adding into our costs of doing repairs and upkeeps and all those things. So, a municipality gets whacked harder than a household does on consumer price indexing. We're not buying food. We're not buying a lot of clothing. Things that maybe level out those expenses. We're buying all the expensive stuff, the insurance, the oil, the gas, the electricity. And so we tend to take a bigger hit than the household would, or than the CPI for a house would indicate.
Sure. Well, let's shift gears a little bit because since we talked, you have been to Toronto and returned because it was time for Roma. And how did that experience go? You met with Mr. Balthamthavy, I believe.
Balthamthavy, yes, Minister of Finance. So, boy, we're not switching a whole great distance from budget to that. Back in something like 2007, the province did a full province municipal financing study plan that took them through to 2018. Of course, we're 5 or 6 years later. So there's a lot of municipalities wanting a new deal, and we certainly put that in. We certainly benefit from the OMPF grants, from infrastructure grants, connecting link grants, those types of things. But we're carrying the cost of the courthouse because it's in Owen Sound, the security costs that the police have to provide. But it's a regional courthouse. When a judge or court administration decides they're going to move a 6-week murder trial from Walkerton to Owen Sound, it's Owen Sound that picks up all the security to cover that building for those 6 weeks without any input from Walkerton or anywhere else. So we do get grants from the province. We had the discussion that they were reviewing it last year or the year before, and I don't think anything came out of it. I'm not sure that a report even came out of it, but I could be wrong in that. We maybe got a report and it's just didn't go anywhere. So the province covers about 50%. The Owen Sound taxpayers are on for the other 50% of that. So that was one of the things that we raised with the minister. A town of supposedly 21,600, whatever it is. We know during daytime we're up somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45,000 with people that come in. We know we're providing rec facilities to the region at the cost to the city taxpayers. So my conversation with the minister was, we hope that you'll have another look at the relationship between the province and municipalities. And we'd love to participate representing the Owen Sounds of the province that aren't we're not 100,000 people. We're not Guelph. We're not different places where um, they have just different experiences and different abilities to fund with the populations that they have than we have. But yet we're providing services for more, and that has to be part of the consideration that the province takes into consideration. So that was the discussion with the minister, basically.
And that was the only delegation that the city had, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
We put together a strategy a couple of years ago, of intergovernmental strategy, that we have specific things on there that, I heard of other people that were there with 7 or 8, and I'm not sure you're moving the ball forward with 7 or 8. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they're getting as much attention 7 times as we get once. But we try and follow our strategy and pick those things that we can pick. Certainly in the past, we went to the Minister of Health to talk about how Georgian Bluffs Chatsworth qualifies for certain funding to hire a doctor, but they don't have any facilities there. We're providing the facilities here for the entire region, but yet we don't qualify for those grants. And I did note yesterday that there is something that has come up from the Minister of Health, that our health team down the river will be able to apply for subsidies and grants from the province. So, and I think the number is up to 20 million, but I don't know if it's just part of 20 million. I'd have to go back and look closer.
Well, and you never know. You can never draw a straight line between what you may have said at Roma and a provincial announcement, because that could have been in the works for weeks.
Oh, exactly. Yep.
So it's a very how to say, mysterious business.
Well, and what we asked for the Minister of Health a year ago is not what this grant is. This is something different. It just happened that it's gone through my mind, so it was 2 days ago. It's still, if we're providing regional service, it makes sense that when they look at those grants for underserviced regions, that they look at it regionally instead of municipality by municipality. And that was how we explained it to her. And I know our fire chief, Phil Eagleson, that covers off some of this stuff, doctor recruitment, because of past experiences, has talked to the minister again and hit that point again. So we're still waiting.
Sure. And sometimes that's what it is. You wait until a letter arrives. And I have read enough of those letters to know that the operative paragraphs are always in the last 3 paragraphs. You turn them over and okay, or no, sorry, you're out of luck. A very interesting dynamic, that's for sure.
Well, if a municipality can't turn on a dime, then a province with policy probably is even worse. So it's you try and chip away at the stone and keep hitting it so you can end up with something.
Very good point. And I think the same is true for even more so federally. I know Alex has had that, and I have had that conversation on this show before. So yes, it's a matter of chipping away and turning and making. Sometimes it's measured in little bits, little pieces, little changes.
Well, for us, we don't really have a lot of input federally. The bigger cities, you hear of Toronto saying, well, we didn't balance our budget, but that's okay. The federal government will pick it up. Bigger cities with more swing ridings, perhaps. Certainly, there's a group of big Canadian cities that have the federal ear more than we would have here. And we're certainly thankful for Alex and for Rick at the provincial level for the support for the region that they give us. But federally, we don't have the same input or involvement as we do through the province.
Very, very good point. And we have seen that very much in play recently with Toronto and their budget funding. But that's a whole other thing. And that means it's time for us to take a break, Ian. So we will take one and be right back because, I've got more questions. I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking. And yes, we will be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Stalo people. The Stalo are people of the river. I'm so thankful for the courage and resiliency of our ancestors who lived on this land since time immemorial. Each of us have gifts from the Creator, and our Creator has a plan and purpose to be fulfilled in our territory. As we embrace our traditional teachings, we can lead the next generation into the fullness of what our Creator designed. Our shared history reveals a broken relationship, but as all Canadians commit to hear truth, acknowledge injustice, we can learn to walk in our traditional way, Letsamot, with a good heart and a good mind. Then all of our lives will be enriched. Kwasai.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to rogerstv.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at rogerstv.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Ian Boddy, who is the mayor of Owen Sound. And we were talking just briefly during the break about his beard. Was that a vacation project, Ian?
I think I forgot to shave at Christmas time, and then it's still there. It'll fall off one of these days. It always seems to. I just wake up one morning and it's gone.
Well, it's one of those things. One of those things. You at least you can say you have some wisdom, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Okay. Well, we won't go there and say we did. Recently, I had the opportunity to hear Chief Ambrose make a presentation about the work that the police service has been doing, and you're very familiar with this, I am sure. And what impressed me was that while he made the point that basic police funding comes from the province, there is a basic police funding grant that comes from the province. One of the things that they've discovered or found is that if they want extras, they want new and different things, they have to apply for various grants. And this has really, Owen Sound Police Service has really taken this by the horns. And Chief Ambrose spoke of operating the aspects of the police service as a business with a business plan. And I was astonished to hear some of the grants that have been received to upgrade our communications, because we were dispatching 43, at least well over 40 fire departments and 5 police departments. We have one of the most advanced communication systems in the province, which will be required in 2025, and on and on and on. It was quite impressive, quite impressive.
So this started somewhat with Chief Stormberger. It's a $7-point-something million corporation, so it requires Chief Craig's got some business background as well to help with with management of the place. It has to be run independently under the Police Act. It's not a division of City Hall. It isn't staff. Everything they do is different. As we've looked at dispatch contracts, and the province pushing us to this new generation 911, which is more videos in cars, videos on maybe the chest of police officers. All that data has to be collected and stored. Huge expense for a police force. Because we've got so many dispatch contracts already, it made sense for us to do it to get ahead of the game, but it also means a ton of fiber going into the police station, et cetera, and some expenses. but it allows us to go back out to more police forces that are smaller, that can't afford the NG 911, or discover that it makes more sense to pay a fee, pay some of the amortization in their fee for our expenses. And the business plan is using those grants to build the facilities and be able to provide those services for more municipalities. And of course, with that means that more of our costs are being paid here by somebody else, which is to the benefit of our taxpayers in the long run.
Yeah, and it was Chief Ambrose spoke of some of the things they've been able to acquire basically through the grant. One of the license plate readers that are mandatory on all police cars now. They were ahead of the curve because they got in on a trial, and they got one of the first, and so they have one more than most police services had funded. Thinking of another one, I think there was at least in one case there was a vehicle that was added to the fleet and on the province's dime, because it was simply it came through the grant, and that's smart business.
Yeah, and staff have been looking for those grants and those opportunities as they've come up.
Yeah, he also noted that we actually have one of the police vehicles, one of the Ford Explorers, is hybrid.
Yep.
It's not well, hybrid means it's both gas and electric. But he was pointing out that as nice as it is, the power draw on the hybrid vehicle is phenomenal. It's with all the lights and communications stuff and computers, it's significant. So
yeah, it would be. And of course, there's a risk of going all electric. Some places are able to do it, but they've got a big fleet of cars. You don't want an emergency where you're running out and you're running the equipment, and all of a sudden it goes out. The advantage of the hybrid is that you do have the gas to get you there. If you need it, you can run electricity for the electrical side of it for smaller jaunts. And there's probably times that they are sitting perhaps in a surveillance position, or just park somewhere that they're writing notes, and the hybrid is really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the fleet changes, because it's one of those things that I'm sure for the municipality as well, for the city, the expanding use of hybrid vehicles and hydrogen and battery technology will all be very important in the next 10 years.
No, it's changing rapidly, and I've said to people, I wish I was 20 years younger, because the next 20 or so years are going to be fascinating as we transition to clean energy and hopefully zero carbon by 2050. The big thing, the big difficulty is storage of electricity, whether you store it battery, pump storage, convert to hydrogen, ammonia, the different ways, and that technology is going to be developed and move forward. But the big challenge is going to be providing the electricity. We're talking about the potential of putting in Bruce Power C that would add another 4 reactors to the 8 that are there. But I think I heard the quote that they really need 8 times what they have there now to provide all the electricity to Ontario that they will need by 2050. So fascinating. Things will have to become more efficient, and each of us is going to end up with an EV or a hydrogen car or a who knows what. Batteries are going to change. It's going to be fascinating, and we're all going to be part of it.
Indeed. And speaking of pumped storage, that project is going to be going ahead, or at least to the next stage.
It's a continuation of this stage where they will look at it and go back to the EIO. I can never remember the
ISEO.
There we go. For another kick at it. We're at a clean energy summit, Nuclear Innovation Institute put on up at Cobble Beach a couple of Fridays ago. And Chief Nadjuan was there. And of course, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation is a partner with TC Energy as they look at this. No final decision has been made, which was very clear. They're looking at it very carefully. They've made suggestions. Suggestions have been followed, and they want to eliminate, all the worries that people have naturally, and it will have to be approved by the Minister of Environment. There's a lot of studies and a lot of approvals that have to be made before we ever get there. But it's from my point of view, I think with the need for electricity and for storage going forward, let's get those studies and let's find out if they get approved or not. Let's not cut it off too quick. Let's find out what they can do. And again, if they don't satisfy Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, there's nobody that cares more about the Great Lakes, frankly. We know that from when we looked at harbor dredging and the federal government trying to download the harbor to us. And of course, we had the chiefs from the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation there with us. So instead of working out something and consulting with them later, they were right there at the table with us. And we're certainly all on the same page. But they're not going to do anything that harms the waters, the fish, the lake bed that they've got a claim to. They're going to be careful about it, so we can rely on their stewardship going forward.
Okay. Well, let's shift the focus a little bit because there was a fascinating story out in the last month. The Chamber of Commerce wants transit extended into Sunset Strip. I thought that one was dead and buried, but it rises again.
Well, if it's dead and buried, it was dead and buried at Georgian Bluffs, and certainly we had a meeting last week with City of Owen Sound. I was there, Tim was there. Heidi, that looks after our transit here, oversees it from the city perspective, is there. CAO and Mayor from Georgian Bluffs, and we looked at it. It isn't just as easy as run the bus further. We're on half-hour routes here in Owen Sound, and we've got to get back to the terminal at half hour on time so that a person riding in one bus can get onto that next bus and go to the east. So you can't just add 10 minutes to that bus route, otherwise it doesn't line up. So, that's just one example of little things. We discussed different ideas, and everyone went away to look at different aspects of it, different costs, and there'll be another meeting and come back and see what can be done.
In other words, the conversation is ongoing.
Yeah. Well, and the conversation's often ongoing with our neighbors around Grey County and Georgian Bluffs on different things. The conversation's always been going. It hasn't necessarily come to a table, but certainly when we're away at conferences, it's always been a conversation with others across Grey and Bruce about, regional policing, regional garbage. There's different things that are discussed. They don't necessarily get to the table because when you have those discussions, sometimes you find out that the barriers are more than just the politicians. There's reasons why it might not work or might work. But I had a good relationship with Al Barfoot, I think, and certainly with Sue, and we're constantly throwing out ideas and thinking about things.
Well, I'll do a shameless plug and say that my show next week is with Sue Carlton and their new CAO, Niall Lobley. So I get to ask them the same question.
Yeah, and I bet you they give you sort of the same answers, so that's good. I hope. No, they will.
Well, at least you're consistent.
Yeah.
At least you're consistent. That's good. That's good. And speaking of things that get shared or want to be or on the table for sharing, Chief Ambrose did refer to court costs, as you have earlier in the show. To sort of sharpen that question, is that under consideration at Grey County, or is that under consideration with the neighbors?
It is not on the table at Grey County as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
It no doubt will be sometime soon. When it came up was just going into budget discussion. And again, budget discussion time through November, December is hard to talk about new ideas and new things. So it makes more sense that we'll raise it, in the coming weeks or months, sort of preferably sometime in the spring.
Well, let me file that for future consideration. I'll make a note of that. We'll come back to that, Ian, because I know that, as you said earlier, it is a significant cost for this city, but is no cost for the other municipalities. I think West Grey and Hanover are the only two that are excluded in Grey County because they are served by the Walkerton Courthouse. At least that's what Chief Amber suggested.
Correct. But at the other end, Sauble Beach north of Bruce County comes into this courthouse.
Very true. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's very true. So we'll just have to wait and see. Just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, it makes for good ongoing conversation for this show.
Yeah, and it takes a whole bunch of people to get together to move things forward. It's not just we're not able to force the county into doing something, or we're not able to force our neighbors into doing something. If they don't want to do it, they don't do it. That's kind of how it works.
Very true. Very true. Well, let's. I'm going to put you on the spot then and ask you about housing. Any word on when we're going to see ground starting to break, or is the economic conditions still pretty tough for developers to start breaking ground?
Well, as you know, we've got more than 3,000 site plan approval for more than 3,000 homes. The province changed the rules that we have to have those site plans turned around in, I think, 90 days. We tend to be pretty good here at the City of Owen Sound. We've always done pre-circulation to iron out the bumps before we actually get the application, and it comes in and we get it turned around very quickly. We've heard from different property owners that they want to move ahead soon. We'll certainly see some construction, obviously, at the new hotel across from behind Southbridge, across from Seasons. They did all the land preparation last year. We're seeing some construction as we speak that would be on 9th Avenue and about 22nd Street in townhomes that are there. I think Barry's finishing out up towards the I forget the name of the subdivision, up towards the cemetery. I think there's still 4 or 5 lots there that he's finishing up.
Woodland Acres. That's Woodland Acres.
Woodland. Yeah, I was going to call it Green Ridge, but it's Woodland. And we've heard from a couple of others that they are keen to start to get shovels in the ground this spring. Some of them we thought were going last fall. I think there has been a settlement that went through this morning at the Land Tribunal regarding Heritage Grove and Sydenham Square, which is next door. So I think you'll start to see some fast action at Heritage Grove on a new grocery store. So yeah, you should see stuff really quickly. Again, it's I'm just the messenger in a sense that it's they tell us if they want to go ahead, and then sometimes we wait. But it feels like there's some momentum going for this summer.
Well, that sounds good. Are we going to see Skydev on the old Goodyear property break ground, or is that the Skydev development? Because that's a rental property.
Yeah, I think they're one of the ones that wants to get going. I'm hearing that the BCK property, Hansa wants to get going. So, again, we'll see. These guys, they buy the property, they get their approvals, then they need to set up the funding to start to build. It doesn't often come out of their pocket because it's so expensive. And if they're building somewhere else in the interim, it has to be timed into their timeline. So it's we'll see. But I'm hearing good things, but I'm reluctant to say, yeah, it's going to happen.
Well, that's Ian. We'll take that because that's all we can get, and that's fine. That's good to hear. So, folks, just watch out for big trucks and shovels and earth movers and all that good stuff. At some point, something's going to change. So we'll just wait and see. Now, Ian, let's move up to the county. I gather there's a big regional job fair happening in February. Can you say something about that?
I think February 14th, I think. The city and Grey County are hosting at Bayshore Community Center a regional job fair that all indications are that we are taking that next step out of COVID, and there's more people looking for work, and certainly the employers are looking for staff. I talked to somebody from Hydrogen Optimized the other day that said they had 4 people starting the next Monday, and they've been hiring like crazy. Those tend to be all scientists and engineers, so high income jobs, people that are coming to the community to work there. So springtime's always a good time, or February going into spring for certainly tourism business and things that will pick up over the summer. So we expect it to be big. I think you can probably find that link at onsound.ca or at greycounty.ca, grey.ca.
Well, I know that there are jobs out there. I was talking to one of the general managers of one of our industries here recently, and he's desperate. He's looking for. He said, "This isn't rocket science. This is show up for work, and we have work for you. It's a laboring job, but it's good pay."
The last couple of years, there's been. I think this is a fallout from COVID. As somebody that was maybe mid to early 60s, tail end of the post-war baby boom, had 3 or 4 years to go, and COVID hits, and they go, "Oh, to heck with this! I'm going now." So there was instead of 1 year retiring each year, there was a group of 2 or 3 or 4 cohort that was bigger that stepped out of the labor market all at once. So slowly recovering from that, but there's definitely been jobs, and all the employers have been looking for people, and nobody should be able to say that they can't get a job these days, because there's more jobs than there are people to fill them.
Sure. Now there's 2 city events I wanted to lift up. The first is Snow and Sound. And what's that all about? That's an annual event for the city.
Is that the Frolics?
Yes.
Yeah, so through social media, I think through On Sound Tourism on Facebook or Instagram, we've done this for a couple of years, and it's especially on a beautiful sunny day like today, it's nice to get out and do something. So if you go in, there's weekly clues. You go and take a selfie in front of those, you submit it, and there's a chance to win prizes and things at the end of the month. So it's kind of a neat idea. Just get out, get around town and see different things, and take your friends and have a bit of fun. So we've been doing that for a few years. It's a neat idea.
Now the Scenic City Order of Good Cheer rink has not had a good season.
No. No, unfortunately, it was thawing, and then when it got cold, too much snow was falling while they're trying to make ice, and they couldn't do that, and then back to thawing. We thought last week was going to be cold enough to get it going, and it wasn't. And a couple of cold days this week. Well, we'll see. We're in February. It's frustrating.
Sure, but surely it is a good thing for the snow control budget.
Yeah, so far, yeah. Not as much salt, sand, and snow plowing. But you got to remember that by provincial legislation, we have to declare a winter control season, which means staff have to be on call or there. So maybe the trucks aren't coming in, but staff's still there. They're trying to do different things, trying to keep busy, but they have to be there. So it maybe just isn't fuel going into the trucks, isn't salt being dropped, it isn't wear and tear on the trucks. But certainly we have to, by legislation, have staff ready to go, and so there's still some of that expense for the winter, no matter what.
And staff is working. I have to say, I encountered one of our city snowplows this week, and it was sparkling. The snowplows are like fire trucks. You got to keep them clean, or they corrode. So they're doing the maintenance. That's a good thing.
Even for the mechanical of it.
Yeah.
Those times that we get big storms, they're going for several days, day and night, with truck pulling in, driver getting out. The wear and tear on the equipment can be such that the mechanics are really busy as well. So yeah, if there's a silver lining in the gray cloud, it's that we haven't run into the same winter expenses as we could have.
Sure. And what about Savor Owen Sound? That's another annual event that we've had.
Looking at my note under here, I think it's the 11th year that we've done that. So different restaurants participate. If you go, there should be something on the table. So it might be a multi-course at a special rate. Different restaurants that are participating to, we can all get a little blue when it's gray outside. So it's a chance to go out and go to a different on-sound restaurant and participate and eat out and have a nice night. And probably it's free dessert, or it's a free salad, when you calculate it all in. So also good for the community, for community involvement, and great project. We certainly thank all the restaurants that participate and help us promote it and help serve a meal. Sure.
And last but not least, there's also the February 14th Wedding Blitz wedding event that's happening. We've got about 2 minutes left. So
it's in the room straight across the hall. I forget how many people came in last year for Valentine's weddings, and it was very successful.
And it seems to have gotten even bigger, that there's more being done, and more businesses are participating, and it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and again, we're dependent on businesses to participate and support this, and very thankful for everyone that does support it. It might be some furniture, it might be flowers, it might be different organizations, different businesses, and it really helps.
Absolutely. And if people don't realize it, it's like you said, it's on the opposite side of the building from where you're standing, but it's a great, wonderful place. Well, Ian, believe it or not, we're out of time, and I want to thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking once again. Always good to hear from you, and it's great to see the sun.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. We'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
The Hit UK show is back with a brand new season.
I'm so happy to be back.
12 unusual suspects go undercover.
I was blown away. That was amazing. It was popping.
Can you unravel